So we can kind of kick things off. Just once again, Coach Hill, Coach Bart, I really appreciate you guys both joining on this athlete intelligence webinar series, Winning with Data, joining us from the Salamanca High School football program. So I appreciate that. Um,
Absolutely.
Before we jump into things, really the goal of these webinar series and the reason why we host a lot of these talks is to obviously discuss head impact monitoring, learn about how you both were first introduced to the technology through how it has now become a part of your program, a part of your daily and weekly analytics, just like you might treat your film sessions. And so some of those who are joining us today have never been introduced to the technology, maybe have been introduced to the technology, but haven't been able to take the next step to implementing it. So hopefully through our discussion today, we can help some of those programs, help some of these other coaches. I know we've got a lot of athletic trainers joining us as well, to help them feel a little bit more comfortable about what this technology provides. And most importantly, hear directly from a football program and football coaches on how it has now been a best practice within your program. So before we jump into some of those details, Coach Bart, maybe we start with you. Tell us a little bit about you and how long you've been coaching for, and what you enjoy most about being a football coach.
Um, well, the quick answer, that the day to day with the coaching staff and the players is always, the best part about coaching. All this stuff that goes along with it, it's pretty cool. It keeps your sports brain in mind. I was a player growing up. I went to Salamanca here, and then spent some time with University of Buffalo and with the Indianapolis Colts as a tight end. And then I immediately wanted to fulfill that urge of being around sports, and education was that pathway. Um, you know, Aaron and I have been friends for a long time, growing up in this community, and we interacted when it came to this and some other areas through USA Football and player safety. And I would like to describe myself as a player's coach because I experienced some of the past practices that I did not necessarily agree with, although I did not know that I disagreed with them till afterwards. As a player, I was just going to listen to what my coach said, and I was going to do it. And as soon as I became a coach and I got out, into the coaching world, I started to recognize some patterns of old school coaching that I wasn't in favor of at all. And any opportunity to increase the safety of the game and while improving performance is where we're headed. And
Yeah.
that's how I believe football is going to maintain its dominance over popularity and player participation. I love the game. Probably most of my professional and personal identity is based around football. And now being a coach and an athletic director at a school, there's more purpose to finding ways of creating a safer environment for our student athletes, but not doing it without sacrificing performance, but doing it because it's right and it's going to make you a better player. So I think some coaches may describe that as coaching soft at times, and Coach Hill might even have some opinions on that. But we are always looking for ways to be safer and better. And I am, just ecstatic to have opportunities like these. Really, this is the next level of, analytics and just data that I've never really been experienced with. I've got a good foundation of tackle safety and blocking safety and player safety and all that good stuff, but this really puts it into a perspective.
So one of the things when I talk to ex-athletes that played at the highest level like yourself, one of the things they talk about is, man, I wish I had this technology when I played, or I wish we were more aware of this, these types of things when I play. Would you consider yourself to be one of those types of players?
Yeah, I'm. I would. I would definitely like to see Chad Bartoszek's 1999 data chart.
There
Um,
you go.
I have a I have a bad feeling there was a lot of contacts here, and not for tackling per se. I want to say when I got up into the higher levels, it was more so blocking, which people don't recognize as much. Just the amount of consistent contacts you have going forward on a line. And if I ever ran into someone that I couldn't move or couldn't get off their plane, I would kind of butt press and get them off. We're seeing some of that right now in our program. So it's definitely an area that we're going to address and continue to evolve.
Nice, gotcha. Coach Hill,
Yes, sir.
how long you been coaching for? Tell us your philosophy, why you wanted to get involved. Was it Coach Bart pulling you, saying, "Hey"?
Yeah.
Did he recruit you?
There's definitely a little bit of that.
Yeah.
I was back with the Salamanca football program a year before Coach Bartoszek came back over from a rival school, but it was some mutual conversation is how we both ended up, on the same staff over the course of a year or so. So I've been defensive coordinator with Chad for 4 to 5 years now. Been coaching the game though since 2007, just in various capacities. I'm also the Eastern Regional Manager for USA Football with a focus on, the football development model and some of our coaching educational programs across the region. But a lot what Chad already said. Like I grew up playing the game. Started when I was 8 years old and played all the way into a couple years of college. Wasn't as fortunate enough or good enough to hit the NFL like Coach Bartoszek, but I love
not many people are. So
right.
Not many people are. The odds are against us.
Exactly. But I love what it's done for me personally and professionally.
Yeah.
I enjoy the qualities of the game. That's something that I want to give back to the kids. I enjoy the passion, the ups and downs, the camaraderie, all that. It's all made an impact in my life. And like Coach Bart's already touched on, just we have a lot of common as from a coaching philosophy standpoint and how we have to be smarter and safer on the football field, not only for the future of the game, but for the health of our athletes, right, overall. So that we've been using the platform now for 4 or 5 weeks, really enjoy what it's brought to our program. We kind of pride ourselves in being an analytical kind of data driven football program related to the sport. And obviously this takes it to another level from a health and safety aspect.
Yeah. So football aside for a second, what do you think is one thing that is part of your philosophy when working with these young athletes that you hope to see them gain off the field? Talk about a lot of the skill sets you gain on the field, but what are some of those things off the field that you guys are really looking to instill with these young athletes who, once again, like you, Aaron, might not make it to the NFL, might not make it to college. Is that a big? Do you find that to be a big part of your program? That, hey, football isn't it might not get you to where you want to go, but you're going to develop some pretty solid skill sets.
Yeah, I promote this throughout our entire athletic department. Just kind of 3 A's of attendance, academics, accountability. It's not some foundational philosophy, but it really is how I approach it. The consistency of being at something over and over, day to day, working hard is a major character trait that is going to benefit you in the future. You got to go to school every day. You've got to get to practice every day. You've got to be in the right frame of mind. And this accountability piece is just huge. How many days we got snow today? So there's a lot of people who wanted to stay home, and we're probably going to have.
You guys got snow today?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So we're going to have a little trouble getting our players motivated today, but they need to be there, and we're going to be there, and we're going to give them our best effort, and just that consistent behavior over time develops, into a well-rounded student athlete. And
Right.
I see that as the most foundational piece to my coaching philosophy.
No, that's incredible. That's incredible. Coach Hill, I believe I first chatted with you about head impact monitoring. Do you remember that first discussion and what your initial reaction was? I don't remember if you had been previously introduced to this type of technology before, but walk us through probably not hearing about athlete intelligence, maybe the technology, but walk us through that and what your initial reaction was.
Reaction was definitely intrigue, right? I believe I had seen some of the Rydell commercials, been hadn't been fully introduced to the concept overall. And I think I just mentioned a second ago, we analytical staff, we use it through our coaching approach. There could potentially be another layer to help with just athlete development. Like there was definitely intrigue to want to learn more. Like we might as well sit down, have that conversation, see what that platform can bring to the table, and see if it can help our football program overall. The fact that we can spin it not only to become better football players and be technically sound, but we can also be smarter and safer with the kids on the field too. So there was a different angles that kind of had my head spinning at first, but it was definitely intrigued when the conversation first started happening.
Were you skeptical at first by any chance? Just technology coming into the sport that historically wasn't a very technologically advanced environment to begin with, especially the high school level.
Sorry, Angels, because I think a little. I have to first with you. Think about the process overall and taking a small sensor and putting it into a football helmet, and then wondering what's the value behind that, right? What does that bring to the table? But how's it being used to make kids coaches or even the game a little better? And there's even a little more on the back end, like can that data be used against us from a sports standpoint? You know what I mean? So there was very heavy, very real conversations, and yes, some skepticism when we first got introduced to the platform, but just based on the conversations with you and how high school football programs were using it to better the sport across the country, we knew we wanted to dig a little deeper.
So what was there one thing that made you want to learn more? Was there an aspect of the technology that made you want to learn more? You said that caught your attention. As a defensive coach, what do you think that was?
So for me, it was when I got introduced to the data. So I spend a lot of time on just from a defensive approach, and I spend a lot of time on the huddle dashboards and inputting data, paint a story about an opposing offense just through numbers. So when the dashboard was shown to me by you, Andrew, like I was okay. This is real information, valuable information that we can use to make our kids better at the sport of football. So, like as soon as I saw those dashboards, I was bought in. I wanted to see if we could get adopted across our programs in Salamanca football.
Can you take us through some of the discussions that happened behind the scenes a little bit? I'm sure, after you got introduced to it, you probably took it to your head coach, who's also the AD. Talk to us a little bit about just that process and what kind of happened behind the scenes.
Coach Bart, do you want to take that one?
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I would say my initial response was to not respond and just see how persistent he was. So we, in all seriousness, we are always looking for ways to separate ourselves, but I feel pretty comfortable with where we are at in terms of our coaching style and our coaching philosophy. So I was looking for not only reasoning for our football team, but as an athletic department as a whole, what can we do to make the greatest impact across the board? And the process of getting our program involved in Aaron and myself. Well, it was not that I didn't want it. It was just, I wanted to be able to convince or relay the data to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel well versed in some of these conversations, but not everybody is, right? And after seeing the product and seeing just how the platform relays the messaging and relays the data, and well, it's more colorful than just data. It's very indicative. It was a good selling point. And now I'm very interested in diving more into it once the season wraps up. And just I would, now I'm interested in other programs like compare. I want to compare and use that to push coaching practice. And I think that's where I think my most significant impact on our kids can be is how are we practicing day to day? How many impacts are we getting compared to last year? How many do we need? How many impacts during a game compared to a week of practice? Right? We're not. So it's interesting, and I'm happy that we're involved. But yeah, the initial conversations took a little bit of time.
Yeah. Well, so now that you've been using it for a few weeks, what do you think has surprised you the most since looking through these dashboards or from looking through these emailed reports?
So on top of Aaron and I's conversations about what we know about it, the kids' response has been great. I'm actually, Aaron's the point person on this and know the routine right away. And he pulls up the reports for our film studies, and they know right away. They're aware, and we haven't had the conversation in a couple weeks, but in the first couple weeks, it was very easy to point out to a few players, this is happening. Why is this happening? And we're addressing this situation now. So I was, and they, the format is so easy to read that it's not some hidden message. It's look at what you're doing.
Right. There's a difference between having access to data, and sometimes they call that death by data, versus I think what we really try to emphasize, which is actionable data. What is something that I can look at and ultimately know that I have an opportunity to make a change there? So talking about that, is there a specific insight or something, Aaron, that you have gathered from the data that kind of surprised you, whether it was offense, defense, particular athlete that you maybe wouldn't have seen through having this technology?
Yeah, there's two different examples that come to mind, Andrew. The first is, the one thing that was surprising to me was just how smart and efficient that we're being in the way we conduct our practices. So when the first 2 to 3 weeks that we were using the platform, we realized we're averaging just a few impacts per athlete per week as it relates to our practice schedule, which that speaks to just Coach Bart's philosophy overall, right? And we're taking care of our kids. We're being technically sound and efficient with low contact practices in the hopes that that stuff translates to the game. So we're getting that validation through the platform. And all that said, we're a 5-2 football team right now, and we can look at some of our practice sessions and know that we're getting better at football, but we're keeping our impacts low, right? And I thought that was shocking to me that we were only averaging about 1 to 2 impacts per week with our kids in practices. Now, you got to look a little more in depth with, right? Your linebackers are obviously going to be at that 6 to 7 mark, but then your kids that aren't getting as much playing time are going to be at that 0 to 1 mark, right? That's why it's an average. But I thought it was really cool that we could tell, our kids that, hey, during the week, we're not doing a ton of contact. We're 1 to 2 impacts per athlete per week, but we're getting better at football while we're doing it too. So I thought that was surprising at first. And then the second example that comes to mind was our guard and defensive tackle. And Coach Bartoszek has already touched on this kid a little bit, but we knew he had poor technique going in, right? With obviously no validation on the technology side of things. And by the second week using the sensor, we could see that he was taking 50% of his impacts just right to his forehead. And that's Coach Bart did that earlier about when he was in college block, and he's like, and they were all right here. I mean, you're talking half of your impacts are straight to your forehead. So he's using button press technique every other play, right? We don't teach that technique. We never have, but it's obviously been driven into his technique throughout his youth career and into high school. So we started to have those tough conversations. And he's actually come to me after a few practices now and said, "Hey, my data should be better today." Right. So that tells me he's consciously thinking about his technique when he's on the football field. All right. He's actually dropped out. I didn't tell Coach Bartoszek this yet, but he's actually dropped out of our top 5 head impacts across the board on our dashboards through the course of the last 2 or 3 weeks. Now we have a center that's starting to creep into those top 5s that we have to have that conversation with. But the fact that he's processing his technique play to play now, and then coming up to us after practice and saying, "Hey, my data should be better today. I'm not headbutting people." Right. So those were the 2, I think, surprises when we started using the platform. And Coach Bart touched on it too. The kids, they actually kind of embrace it. They enjoy it. They like putting the sensors in. They like to ask where they're ranked on the platform dashboards, right? But they're embracing it a little bit, which, I appreciate.
Well, you said a word that kind of sticks with me a lot is validation, right? And there's really 2 forms of validation that we hope to be able to identify with this technology. Validating that our players are either not using proper technique, so we can coach them up and coach them to use proper technique, or the validation that they are using proper technique, right? Without this type of technology, we just don't know. Yeah, right. We can see some of that through film, of course, which gives us an idea. But it sounds like this has really been able to uncover the key validation, those key players, those key positional groups, those validating the kids that you thought may have had a problem. Now now you've been able to work with them closer, and sounds like it's really helped them out, and probably as a coach has helped you out as well.
Absolutely. I'll tell you our favorite story so far. We did have, I believe it was a second game that we used the platform. Our Mike linebacker had a monster impact. I want to use that word carefully, but a monster red impact to the back of his head. And we're racking our brain trying to figure out where and when that would have happened, how it would have happened. While we go back through huddle and we score a long touchdown down our sideline in the end zone. And of course, our athletes do the thing where they run and jump together to celebrate. And of course, and this is where the impact comes from. He jumps, goes shoulder to shoulder, the feet go up in the air, and he lands right on the back of his head. So just like it wasn't football, right? It's just a celebration in the end zone, kids being kids, and there's your biggest impact of the game. So that was the kids had a good laugh about that one too, and he was fine. So
yeah,
we're good there.
So you mentioned the players have gotten involved a little bit. I think you've created this dynamic too, where the kids almost seem like they don't want to be part of that top 5, right? Like that's obviously the goal, is you don't want to be part of that top 5, but that they've been able to embrace it. They're being conscious around it. Aside from the players, any feedback from parents or other administration members or even the community as far as how you've embraced this technology and what it's been able to do for your program?
I'll take that one, Aaron. I am looking forward to our postseason to really absorb all the information that we're gathering, and Aaron and I and our staff and our players are well aware of this, but it is, and you said validation, the other piece to this, and it's not always based off of coaching practice, but is winning. And we're hopeful to go on a little run here in the playoffs and win some games. And for me, it's exciting because you want to win football games, but come postseason, it'll be an easier conversation to say, this is how we operate. So our youth programs can see, our parents can see, we're still playing at a very high physical level, and we are contacting things. We just hit bags and we do it close by. We're just teaching proper technique. So winning and winning comes along with some of this. We haven't had a year where we've been so far down wins and loss wise that we had to address how much we contact during the season. I'm hoping there's a result because of what we're doing, and I'm pretty pumped up that we're able to say that and do that and still be a physical football team on Friday nights. It's exciting for me. And when we wrap up this year and we build our PowerPoint for our parent athlete end of the year banquet, there's going to be some significant data stressed in that meeting, and we'll have youth coaches and parents involved. And I think that's going to garner some interest for sure. If we go and win a few playoff games, that'll be even better. So
right. Have you received any changes in participation over the last couple of years, just with the concerns around head injuries? Our participation rates tend to go up, down. Do you notice any of that in your community at all?
It's a hard equation to factor right now. We're holding on as a small C school with 3 levels and multiple youth programs. There is a significant concern about the post-COVID participation numbers, and are they correlating? Our kids, are they not as accessible? Are they not as accountable? Are coaches not as motivated? There's a lot there, and that goes across entire athletic departments, probably across the country. But what I will say is we do maintain numbers. When they are with us, we maintain numbers. We rarely lose our football players, and I do believe much of that has to do with the culture we've built around practice.
Makes sense. Do you feel the system has had a positive impact on your team's both performance and safety?
Go ahead, Aaron.
Aaron?
It's Andrew. I think I lost you guys for a second there.
I was just asking, do you feel the system has had a positive impact on both your team's performance and head safety?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, just based on conversations we've had as a staff, based on conversations we've had with our athletes, we've made positive strides on a health and safety side of the game, and I hope to expand on it. We've really just started to use this platform to expand. We're still in the infancy. We're only a couple weeks into this, so we're excited to dig into it. And honestly, we didn't even use the platform through our training camp, through our first couple weeks of the season, where those drills and impacts may have been a little higher based on some of the teachings and technique and stuff that we were working on with our athletes. So we're just at the tip of the iceberg, but it has made a positive impact so far.
Would you have considered this to be a good use of funds?
Yes. Yeah. I didn't do the fundraising this time, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because I think it was in part with your booster club, right? And oftentimes those booster club members are parents of these kids that are playing, and I think everyone supports this idea of head health safety. And yeah, it costs money. Yeah, it's technology. Yeah, it doesn't always make sense, but it sounds like you've developed a really solid proof of concept and have been able to use it in a way of, here's what we've accomplished this year, here's the recap, here's what we hope to accomplish going into next year. And then even thinking about your youth programs, where it's like, hey, if we can instill this into our youth programs and establish those key fundamentals in their tackling and blocking, by the time they get to the high school level, you are going to have these primed athletes that understand this idea of keeping your head out of contact. So sounds like you guys have built a really solid philosophy and foundation around that.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of coaches and athletic trainers and athletic directors that have joined us today. What is one message that you would want to share with them as they start to think about this technology and whether or not it's a good fit for them in their program?
I would just like to just recognize the the ability to communicate the message with your players in particular is first and foremost. You want to, hopefully you're already using best practice and following blocking and tackling contact guidelines brought forth to you by USA Football. But you also
Good plug.
you want to be able to justify some of those behaviors. You want to be able to communicate that with your youth programs all the way up. The goal here are for healthy student athletes, right? We want football players that can play the game at a high level without directly affecting their abilities, decades down the road. And I think anyone who's played the game, 20 years past is probably thinking about that right now, how we used to practice. And I am just a huge advocate for these safety techniques and for our own kids, and how are they going to remember the game of football, and how is it compared to what we went through. So in terms of funding, and in terms of the correlation between school budgets and booster clubs and all that, there's room there. There's easy opportunity to at least give it a shot and see what you think. That was one thing I really wanted to do, or I put a huge put my name on anything, is I want to see what it's all about. And
Yeah.
so we're doing things correctly, but it is kind of justifying some of our coaching techniques, and I want to I want to make sure that we're able to communicate it other than through film on a Saturday morning. And this is definitely a way to do that.
Awesome. Coach Hill, you want to add anything, message to coaches, athletic trainers, programs that are kind of been looking into this technology, or some of those that are joining us today that have never seen it and have been curious about it, or considering it? What's one message you want to pass along to them in terms of whether or not this, why they should at least look into it, why they should think about it, why they should learn about it?
I don't know how you add to what Coach Bartoszek just said, right? That was very well stated, but there's real value there. There's ways to get better at the sport that we often don't think about, that are outside of the norm. And this is kind of the wave of the future. And honestly, when we first started having the conversation with Coach Bartoszek and even you, Andrew, I think the cliche I used is, it's not if, it's when we're going to be forced to adopt this. We might as well be forward thinkers, be ahead of the curve, start to use this technology to make the sport better, right? And make our athletes better. So just understand that there's true value there, and this is kind of the future of football, whether some of us old guard like it or not, right? But I think that's all I would add to what Coach Bart said.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time today. I was, hoping to try to keep this around 30 minutes. We had a lot of awesome things to talk about, and a lot of valuable feedback that I think will help other programs. And, it's always really rewarding to hear how the system has benefited your program. That is our why. That is our passion behind this. We know that if we can help one program accomplish such greatness, then we can mirror that with a number of other teams. So really appreciate you guys being on today and sharing your stories. I look forward to watching, keep the rest of the season. I got some big upcoming games, so we'll be rooting for you guys. Before we sign off, anything else you guys want to add?
I don't think so. Go Warriors.
Go Warriors.
Phil's got to get to practice, so we got to get him out of here.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You don't want to be late. You'll have Hill. Do you ever have him run laps if he's late?
I can't do that anymore. Push-ups.
It's all push-ups now.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you. Thanks for hopping on our segment today, and we'll keep in touch. All right, guys.
Thanks, Andrew.
All right.
Appreciate
Take
it.
care, everyone.